Georgia attacks a disputed region. Russia reacts with overwhelming military force. Who's really the aggressor? Next on Global Pulse. Rhetoric, manipulation, and the international media in the military dispute between Russia and Georgia. When Russian tanks and troops moved into South Ossetia and Abkhazia, world reaction was swift. U.S. media, including ABC and Fox, saw one villain, Moscow.
Russia has invaded a sovereign neighboring state and threatens a democratic government elected by its people.
More than 9,000 Russian paratroopers and more than 350 armored vehicles have now been deployed by Russia in Abkhazia.
The Georgian president said his country was effectively cut in half.
It is so clear what's happening. We are in the process of invasion, occupation, and annihilation of an independent, democratic country.
But President Saakashvili ignored a major fact in interview after interview. The BBC and Germany's Deutsche Welle reported on the Georgian military gamble that backfired, while Iran's Press TV pointed fingers at Washington.
United States President George W. Bush has strongly criticized Russia for its military operations in Georgia. While Bush said that his country stands with Georgia, it did not utter a word on Georgia's assault on the breakaway region of South Ossetia, though.
On Friday, the Georgian army launched a large-scale offensive aimed at regaining control over South Ossetia. Russia, which supports local separatists, responded by pouring tanks and troops into the area and by bombing Georgian targets.
This has been a huge gamble for Georgia, and they've paid a huge price militarily, economically, in terms of humanitarian cost as well, 100,000 displaced people.
Russian media tried to put a humanitarian face on the conflict. Russia Today claimed Georgia's actions forced Moscow's hand.
We were massacred, killed like flies. Nazis. I have a two-story building. It was destroyed by Grad. I miraculously survived.
It was absolutely unacceptable to see residential quarters shelled, to see a humanitarian convoy trying to reach the people in need bombed from the air.
My aunt saying that on a crossroads, on the streets, there are people, dead people, corpses all around, and basically they all are women and children.
Both countries maintain peacekeeping missions in the breakaway region in accordance with the UN mandate. Russia has always stood for Georgia's territorial integrity, but Tbilisi has long demanded Russian peacekeepers out of the region.
Getting at the truth became elusive. The BBC used show and tell to challenge Russia on one military claim.
The Russian Air Force has also been in action today, bombing targets in both South Ossetia and in Georgia itself. Now, this huge crater, the Georgian authorities say, is the result of one of those bombing runs by Russian jets. Now, the point about this is it's something like 30 kilometers away from South Ossetia. In other words, the Russian military campaign has already extended deep into Georgian territory.
The fighting overshadowed the long-seated roots of the conflict. The BBC explained the geopolitics at play, while Al Jazeera saw the human side.
Well, South Ossetia and Abkhazia have been a source of tension between Tbilisi and Moscow since they broke away from Georgia in the 1990s.
South Ossetia is an interesting little place. It's a patchwork of villages occupied by ethnic Ossetians and ethnic Georgians. The Georgians, of course, are tied to Georgia itself, but the Ossetians have always wanted to reunite with their brethren across the border in North Ossetia, which is a Russian republic.
On one level, it's a local dispute. Georgia wants to reassert control over its territory. But on another level, there's a far bigger power play. Russia sees the entire Caucasus as its backyard, a geostrategic crossroads between Asia and Europe it wants to keep in its grasp.
Lost in the background was another critical piece of the picture. Al Jazeera reported on Georgia's critical role in the global energy market.
The country has become an increasingly valuable energy highway, delivering oil and gas from the Caspian Sea directly to Europe.
For Global Pulse, I'm Liz Cabrera.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.